Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session on strategic planning. I know we have heard a lot about this topic, and today we want to investigate exactly what is strategic planning. The objectives for this particular session are to explain the concept of strategic planning, to share a sample strategic plan, and motivate you to start writing your own strategic plans. So let's start. What is strategic planning? Strategic planning is a process in which organizational leaders determine their vision for the future, as well as identify their goals and objectives for the organizations. There are three questions that have to be asked when you're doing strategic planning. Where are we now? Where do we want to be? And how will we get there? And that is what we will be exploring in this evening's session. So, what is an actual strategic plan? It is a document used to communicate with the organization's goals, the actions needed to achieve those goals. Let us look at some of the critical issues to consider in a strategic plan. First, objectives. Our strategic plan has to have objectives. Now, these objectives are what you have arrived at based on where it is that you want to go. And then strategy. Strategy is the plan that you are going to implement in order to arrive at your objectives. And of course, you must have a time frame in which you do your strategies. Another critical issue is the resource. If we're going to be strategic planners, then we have to have the necessary resources to carry out our objectives. The resources are also aligned to budget. So, if you want to do a strategic plan, you have to carefully consider the budget. In addition to these critical issues, many persons do not realize, but implementation and evaluation are key concepts to the strategic plan. You have to have a plan as to how will these things be implemented and what will be the process of evaluation. We will discuss that further as we go on. Let me share with you now a strategic plan, and I'll give you the context. This secondary school has been experiencing poor interpersonal relationships between administrators and lower level staff. This has caused some of the more experienced and qualified teachers to leave the school. There is a breakdown of order in how a typical day in a high school should be. Students are also affected by this. They are increasingly late for classes. So that is the context in which I am going to prepare a strategic plan. And I should say that all the issues that were mentioned in this context are things that would have come out of a strategic analysis, okay? Otherwise known as a SWOT analysis, whereby you are going to analyze the context or the environment, the organization, to see what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the opportunities, and what are the threats. So let us look at the strategic plan that will address these concerns. So I have gone ahead and I have prepared objective one. Objective one says promote healthy relations between administrators and lower level staff. And let us look at two strategies. So we are going to facilitate quarterly question and answer sessions between administrators and lower level staff. Another strategy is to host quarterly socials for staff and administrators. And of course, as you see, we have time frames. For the first strategy, we say by 2020, August 2020, then we would have accomplished these things. As I said earlier on, you have to consider the budget. So you have to examine your context and you plan your budget accordingly. For my first strategy, I would not need any capital. So notice on the budget, I say not applicable. My resources that would be needed are human. Okay, for the second strategy, I have host quarterly socials for staff and administrators, and this would begin by December 2017. And I've put a budget there as you see, and it is going to require human and capital to execute this strategy. So, as I said before, you have to analyze your context to see how feasible your budget is going to be. Let's go to objective 2. Objective 2 says hire and retain qualified teachers. My first strategy would be to recruit qualified and experienced teachers by August 2017, and I'm going to need human as well as capital. And I mention capital because you have to advertise, and advertising costs money. Secondly, I will provide training for teachers in new teaching methodologies, and this would begin by August 2017. And of course, if we're going to be training teachers, then we are going to need to provide human as well as capital resources. My third strategy for this objective is to implement a reward and recognition system for teachers, and this would be done by December 2017. I have placed a budget beside it, and as you see, that also would require human and capital resources. Let's go to the third objective. The third objective in this strategic plan is to improve students' punctuality to school and classes by 30%. So, three of the strategies that I have implemented or I'm suggesting here are to facilitate 2 yearly motivational talks with habitual latecomers, institute an early bird reward system for students, and introduce a punctuality warden. Two of these strategies, as you see on the screen, will require capital. However, the punctuality warden will not require capital. Let me just remind you that as you plan for your organization, you have to consider implementation and evaluation. Some of the things that we have to consider, as I would have suggested earlier on, are: is it realistic? Is your plan realistic? Is it clear? Is it balanced? Does it reflect the mission and vision of your institution, or mission and vision of the strategic plan? And does it overcome difficulties identified in the SWOT analysis? As you see, I would have mentioned things that I would have seen from the SWOT. And so my objectives were related to the context. And so when you go and you decide to do a strategic plan, you have to consider all of these questions to ensure that whatever it is you're planning, then it is going to be effective. So here are my references, and I hope you would have learned something from this presentation. Thank you for watching, and it is now your time to go and do a strategic plan. I thank you.